Dust and blood on Kasari Ridge. The dust never settled on Kasari Ridge. Not because of wind, there was none, but because artillery fire stirred the soil every hour. Smoke hung in the air like the memory of something worse, and the sky, once a thin teal over the horizon, now burned orange and gray. Lieutenant Maren Voss crouched behind the jagged lip of a broken barricade, helmet low, rifle slung tight across her chest. Her HUD blinked. Battery 18%. Oxygen stable. Ammo, 12 rounds. And counting. She tapped her comms. Static. Bravo line check-in, she said low and steady. Nothing. Then, this is Sergeant Kale. Bravo's down to 9. We're holding. She swallowed. 9 from 40. That was holding? Any sign of reinforcements? Kale asked. Maren looked up. The ridge beyond was a smoking hell of craters and broken drone parts. The eastern flank, where reinforcements were supposed to arrive 3 hours ago, was silent. No movement. No thunder of drop ships. She answered honestly. No. There was a pause. Then Kale's voice again. Then we dig in. Maren didn't reply. There was nothing else to say. The enemy wasn't like the stories. The Sarkin coalition called them the Brass Tide. Cyber-organic nightmares, long-limbed, jointless, with bronze-plated armor that pulsed and flexed like breathing metal. They didn't scream. They didn't talk. They marched. When the humans first arrived, the Sarkin had scoffed. Another species in the stars, they'd said. Another diplomatic body, full of protocol and posturing. But humans didn't posture. They dug in. Kasari was supposed to be the coalition's Alamo. A last stand before the capital system. But instead of sending a token fleet or offering political condolences, Earth had sent the 501st Shock Infantry. And a message. Hold the line. Maren shifted to her feet and scanned the horizon with her rifle scope. Thermal overlays lit up something, movement, low to the east trench. Not friendlies. She tapped her mic. Tangos incoming. North slope. ETA 45 seconds. Her squad snapped to position like muscle memory. No orders needed. They'd been holding this line for 16 hours. No one spoke. Everyone moved. A flash in the distance. Then another. The horizon shimmered. Then they came. Like ants made of fire. Hundreds of them, skittering over the rocks, claws gleaming, eyes like molten brass. A scream cut through the comms, not human. A warning. Then the ridge exploded. Maren didn't remember squeezing the trigger, only that her rifle was hot, and she was shouting over the gunfire. Left flank, suppressive! A Sarkin soldier ducked beside her, shaking, plasma cannon clutched like a child's toy. He wasn't used to this. None of them were. She yelled over the chaos. Keep firing! Don't wait for orders! He blinked. Then nodded. Then screamed as a brass drone lunged the barricade. Maren's blade was in her hand before she thought. One stroke to the knee joint. Another through the eye socket. It dropped, steaming. The Sarkin stared. You didn't hesitate. Maren's face was blank. Neither will they. They held the ridge for 7 more minutes before the northern slope gave out. That was standard for Kasari. The tide didn't need hours, they needed cracks. Once they found one, they flooded. Maren pulled her wounded behind a blast wall, watching the map flicker. All red now. No blue dots. Her squad was gone. She clicked her comm. Kale? Crackling static. Then faint. Still here. Got 2 left. Heavy weapons. Last mag. She stared down the slope, eyes narrowing. Reroute to echo position. Regroup. We won't make it. Try. Another pause. What about you? Maren exhaled. I'm not done yet. She sprinted toward the breach point. Pulse rounds whizzed overhead. A burning Sarkin gunner screamed as he was torn apart. Brass drones poured through the trench like liquid death, stepping over bodies with surgical disregard. Maren dove into cover, tossed a thermal grenade, and popped up to lay down suppressive fire. 3 fell. 1 climbed the wall behind her. She spun, too late. But a bolt of energy tore through its chest before it struck. She turned. Another human. Private Rhodes. Face blackened with soot, eyes bloodshot. "I thought you were dead," he said. "You're late," she replied, pulling him behind cover. "Where's command?" "You're looking at it." Rhodes nodded, pulled a spare mag from his belt, and handed it to her. "For Earth," he said simply. "For everyone," Maren replied. Behind them, the ground rumbled. They turned just as something massive dropped through the sky. A deep bass thunder rolled across the field. A gunship. No, the gunship. Earth-class Titan series. VT-97 Hammerfall. Maren's comm buzzed. "Lieutenant Voss, this is Commander Dane. Reinforcements inbound. Hold your ground." Her breath caught. "We've been holding," she whispered. "But the line's broken." "Not yet, it's not." Behind her, the sky split open as drop pods rained down like steel meteors. Dozens. Hundreds. And every single one was human. The Sarkin soldier beside her, shaking, looked up at the rain of warriors. "You said there were no reinforcements," he murmured. Maren smiled, bloody, tired, defiant. "There weren't." Then she stood. And yelled, "Now there are." When the sky opened, the drop pods screamed through the atmosphere like judgment. 30 tons of tungsten-lined fury, each one wrapped in ablative plating and trailing white fire across the burned skies of Kasari Ridge. Lieutenant Maren Voss watched from behind the broken blast wall, half covered in soot and blood, rifle hanging low at her side. The wind from the impact kicked up ash, debris, and the iron stink of the dead. Beside her, the Sarkin soldier stared wide-eyed as the pods struck Earth with surgical precision. No scatter. No drift. Just violence pressed into math. "Who are they?" he asked quietly. Maren didn't look at him. "Shockborne. Earth's orbital core." He blinked. "I thought that was myth." "They don't show up for wars," she replied. "They show up for extinctions." The pods hissed open. From each one rose a soldier, tall, armored head to toe in matte black exosuits, faces hidden behind HUD's glowing faint blue. No insignias. No rank tags. No names. Just unity. Their boots hit the ground like they'd been waiting to land for years. Rhodes was the first to break the silence. "Never seen them before." "You were never meant to," Maren replied. "These are Earth's last cards. If they're here, someone thinks this war is over. And not in our favor," he muttered. One of the soldiers approached her, visor sliding back to reveal a weathered face. Dark skin, shrapnel scars, gray at the temples. He looked at Maren like he already knew her. "Voss?" "Yes. I'm Captain Rourke. Shockborne 3rd Division. Command's giving you tactical control of Sector Delta." Maren blinked. "You're giving me command? You've held the line longer than anyone. We take orders from those who bleed for it." He tossed her a hardened data pad. It vibrated with updated field data, heat maps, friendly positions, enemy wave timings down to the second. Maren caught it without hesitation. "Then let's finish what we started." The counteroffensive began 10 minutes later. The brass tide had expected collapse. Instead, they found choreography. Human infantry swept into the trenches like knives. Coordinated fire teams. Zero hesitation. Every breach retaken, every enemy position flanked. Maren led from the ridge, calling drops, assigning flanks, balancing death with necessity. She spoke fast, moved faster. "Flank sweep north. Push pressure point Gamma 2. Sniper drone on Bunker 6. Kill it or we lose the West Trench." Every call was obeyed. Every call bought another minute of survival. Then came the second wave. The real wave. It didn't skitter or climb. It rolled, a living wall of brass, obsidian, and white-hot circuitry. 3 stories high. A biomechanoid engine of hate. A Juggernaut-class unit. Rourke stared at it through his scope. That's not infantry. That's a siege weapon. Then treat it like one, Maren said. Eyes on. He tapped his helmet. All Shockborne, target priority shift. Code 13. Titan confirmed. The human line wavered, but didn't break. Instead, the soldiers began moving toward it. Maren climbed the nearest elevation point, an old artillery nest long abandoned, and set up her rail launcher. Its barrel buzzed, whining as it charged. Rhodes scrambled up beside her, tossing an extra power core. You can't kill that thing with a railgun. I'm not trying to kill it, she said. I'm trying to distract it. The Juggernaut roared, not a sound, but a low-frequency pulse that cracked nearby windows. It swept a beam of white light across the trenches. Anything caught in its gaze turned to slag. Then it looked up. At her. She fired. The shot pinged harmlessly off its carapace, but it turned. Right toward her. That worked, Rhodes said grimly. Fall back. Now. What about you? I need to paint it for a drop strike. You leave, I live. That's backwards. I know. She stayed. Every heartbeat brought the monster closer. Its arms twisted, unfurled, blades, drills, cannons merged into one shifting nightmare. She tapped the beacon. Target lock. Confirm strike zone. Now. The sky answered. A silver spear tore down through the clouds. No engine noise. Just heat and speed. The kinetic rod hit the Juggernaut dead center. A soundless flash. Then light. Then crater. When the smoke cleared, there was no trace of the creature. Only silence. Maren slumped against the nest wall, railguns smoking. A moment later, Rhodes reappeared, panting. Told you I'd come back. She smiled faintly. You always do. He sat beside her. They're retreating. The tide. Pulling back across the canyon. She didn't cheer. Just closed her eyes and breathed. Then we hold this line. Hours passed. Corpses were cleared. Trenches were rebuilt. The Sarkin soldiers gathered in clumps, watching the humans from a distance. Not with suspicion now. With awe. Their command unit, General Vietel, approached Maren as she walked the line. You changed the tide, he said. You saved our world. Maren shook her head. We just did what we always do. What's that? Show up late. Lose half our people. Then fight like hell until no one remembers how to push us back. Vietel stared at her. You're monsters. She looked him dead in the eye. No. We're human. The line never breaks. Night fell over Kasari Ridge like a sheet of ash. Fires smoldered along the horizon where drop pods and enemy walkers had left their scars. The battlefield, once alive with chaos, now lay quiet, tense, like the silence before the next breath. Lieutenant Maren Voss sat on the edge of a collapsed trench, sharpening a combat knife with slow, deliberate strokes. Her armor was scuffed, blood-streaked, and still faintly smoking from the last skirmish. Behind her, humans and Sarkin worked side by side, building barricades, reloading ammo crates, and dragging the wounded toward newly erected med shelters. She didn't need orders. They all knew what to do. Captain Rourke approached, helmet tucked under his arm, expression grim. They're regrouping. Recon drones spotted fresh movement beyond the canyon. Maren didn't look up. Expected. They don't stop. They adapt. He paused. We've bled a third of our strength today. The coalition forces are nearly broken. And we're the last defense between them and the capital spire. Then we hold, she said, still sharpening. Simple orders. You always this stubborn? Only when I know we're not done yet. Beyond the ridge, buried under layers of blackened terrain, the brass tide was shifting. Their numbers weren't infinite, but they felt that way. Buried hives woke. Reinforcements were birthed, not deployed. They didn't communicate in any way humans understood, just pulses, shared impulses, collective hunger. And the humans had hit them harder than they ever expected. The next wave would be worse. Smarter. Faster. Meaner. Rourke gathered the remaining Shockborne around a burn-scored command table, the holographic map flickering with red zones. Maren stood beside him, pointing to key elevations and collapsed trenches. We don't spread wide. We collapse inward. Funnel them. What about the eastern corridor? One corporal asked. Already sealed with thermal mines. We push their momentum into a kill box here. She tapped the map's narrow channel. Then lock it with a rail burst. Bleed them inside. A younger Sarkin officer hesitated. We won't survive that close of contact. Maren met his eyes. You will. Because we will. You hold the line next to humans, you don't fall. His throat bobbed. He nodded. 2 hours later, the storm began. It came without warning. No build-up. No scattered scouts. Just darkness. And then light. Hundreds of enemy forms surged over the canyon edge, leaping, sliding, crawling in impossible configurations. The sky flashed with plasma fire. The air burned. Maren crouched behind the wall, rifle tight to her shoulder, eyes scanning. Steady. Rourke's voice echoed from the other side. Shockborne, engage! Explosions tore the night. Sarkin and human alike fired shoulder to shoulder. Turrets spun until their barrels glowed. Every inch was bought in blood. Rhodes was there, blade in one hand, shotgun in the other. He fought like he'd died already and come back annoyed. A brass drone lunged at Maren. She dropped low, drove her knife up into its undercarriage, twisted, and kicked it off the wall. You good? Rhodes called. Ask me when it's over. The funnel plan worked. The tide pushed inward, closing on what they thought was collapse. And that's when Rourke called it. Drop rail. Now! A single orbital strike lanced through the sky like a silver spear, piercing the funnel's center. It detonated underground, imploding the entire channel. Dozens of brass creatures vanished in an instant. The ground collapsed in a long, rumbling chain reaction. Then quiet. Then cheering. It started with one Sarkin. Then 2. Then a dozen. Even the wounded raised their arms. Because, for the first time, they weren't barely surviving. They were winning. Later, Maren stood at the command tent entrance, wiping grime from her cheek. The scent of smoke and hot metal still lingered. General Vietel approached, robes torn, armor scorched. I spoke with the Concord this morning, he said. She raised an eyebrow. They want to send diplomats. Reopen dialogue with Earth. They called your people unpredictable, dangerous, erratic. And now? Now they call you essential. She chuckled. Took long enough. He looked her in the eye. You're not like us. You don't fight to prove something. You fight because you refuse to fall. Maren nodded. That's about right. You're all like that? Every single one. As the sun broke over the blackened hills, the humans stood in silence at the ridge's edge. Exhausted. Bruised. Still breathing. Rourke stepped beside Maren. You know, they'll write about this someday. Probably get it wrong, she said. Yeah. Probably leave out how close we were to breaking. Doesn't matter, she replied. What matters is what we did. He nodded, then looked out over the battlefield. What's next? Maren narrowed her eyes at the distant horizon. We hold, she said. He blinked. Still? Always. Because that was what humans did best. They held the line. And when the enemy looked into their eyes and saw that, the war was already over.